Football, from the Latin futium volumius, meaning football. More than a game, more than an obsession, more than a feeling. Where triumph meets disaster, where glory meets despondency, where breakfast meets brunch. You take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll be at the pie shed before you. Because this is real, this is life, this is football.
And this is me, Chick Young, asking you to join me in Only an Excuse, Chico's Hall of Fame, with Denis Law. Denis, where's the best place you ever played football?
Well, Chick, that would have to be Hampden Park, because no one who has ever played there will ever forget that roar, and no one who's ever stood there will ever forget that smell,
Was the game harder back when you played, Denis?
Was it harder? Well, I once clattered into Billy Bremner, really nailed him, and wee Billy, who's a pal, he turns to me and he says, "What are you doing, Denis?" And I said, "I'm sorry, wee man, no friends in this pitch." And Billy says, "But, Denis, we're playing the same team."
Denis, do you think football is still the same as it was in your day?
Well, to be honest, Chick, there's been a lot of changes in football, but what you've got to remember, right? What you've got to remember is the ball is still round, right? Yeah, the ball is still round. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I haven't a clue, I'm sorry.
The unmistakable Denis Law there, a player respected and admired throughout the world by Scottish legends like the legendary other King of Scotland, Kenny Dalglish.
Some people say that Denis Law was better than Kenny Dalglish. And some people say that Kenny Dalglish was better than Denis Law. But only one person says Denis Law was better than Denis Law, and that's Denis Law.
Plus Sky Sports pundit Jim White, he said this. Well, mates, of all the stars I've ever interviewed, and let me tell you, mates, I've interviewed a lot, Denis is the only one who looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sorry, who are you?" Denis Law, the lawman, the menace, the king, league champion, FA Cup winner, joint Scotland top scorer, the only Scotsman ever to win the Ballon d'Or. Denis, it's an honour to meet you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
First up, Denis, I'd like to start by asking you how it all began.
How what all began?
Your life.
My life? The life of me? Well, I'm sorry, Chico, if you don't mind, I'd rather not say, because to be honest, I'm really not much of a talker,
In that case...
Well, it began, I suppose, at the beginning, I lived in Aberdeen during the Depression, a depression caused by living in Aberdeen, And that was back in the days before the oil boom, during the fish boom, when everything smelled of fish, including fish. And, I didn't wear shoes, no. I wore clogs carved out of pieces of driftwood washed up in the beach. And I supported Aberdeen, the Wasps, as they were called back then, because their colours at that time were black and gold. The only thing that was red was their necks after some of their performances, a little joke. But of course, I was mad about football, so that's all I did, I just played football, and I must have been quite good, despite the clogs, because the next thing I heard was that a top English club were interested in signing me. Of course, that turned out to be a lie, because it was Huddersfield Town.
And how old were you at that time, Denis?
Well, I must have been about, 4 or 5? I can't remember. But so when I heard about Huddersfield Town being interested in me, the first question was, where is Huddersfield Town? Someone said England, so my second question was, where is England, Anyway, I found it on the map. I got the bus, and 10 days later, I arrived at Huddersfield Town, and well, the rest.
Yes, your field of dreams was about to become the field of Hudders. But you weren't instantly dining on a banquet of millionaire shortbread. Instead, it would be a rocky road to success for the lawman down south. I put it to you, I might be right in saying that from the start you and the owner didn't quite hit it off.
Well, I suppose it could have been interpreted in that way, You see, as soon as I walked in the door, he took one look at this skinny, puny, weak, bespectacled kid, and he said, he's not a footballer, he's a freak, And he wanted to sack the scout who spotted me and the manager who signed me and sent me back home. But that just made me all the more determined. So, I binned the NHS specs. I bulked up from 6 stone to 6.5. I ditched the clogs for football boots, and boy, did I show him I was a footballer, But, despite the inauspicious start, I have many, many great and fond memories of my time at Huddersfield Town.
Like what?
Well, I can't remember, but I do remember this, I owe an awful lot to Bill Shankly.
Yes, your former Huddersfield gaffer Bill Shankly held you in the highest of high esteem. Indeed, in a parallel universe of infinite possibilities, Shanks would have built a successful Liverpool side around the lawman. The great man recalls these heady days in this rare extract from the archives.
Well, I was leaving Huddersfield to go to Liverpool, and I wanted to take young Dennis with me, but Liverpool, they couldn't afford them, and you have to remember in those days they didn't have such things as Provi checks.
But if Liverpool FC were skinned, then, as now, Manchester City were rolling in spondulics. This was pre-Etihad, and the light blues snapped up the lawman to be the main man at Main Road. City signed you for a then British record transfer fee of £55,000.
Well, that was a lot of money back then. It was a lot of money. And in today's terms, what would £55,000 be? Well, I don't know. I mean, but roughly, whatever. I don't know. I put £56,000. Your guess is as good as mine. But see, what you have to remember is when I signed for Manchester City, Manchester United were looking at me. And it's true. Matt Busby was looking at me. It wasn't going to do anything. He was just looking at me, But that was good to know, because in the end, though, I decided to leave Manchester City because they were a very unlucky team, They really were. I'm convinced there was some sort of voodoo curse in them. For example, FA Cup, right? We're 6-0 up against Luton Town. I'd scored 7, and an elephant or something walks onto the pitch and lies down. They can't move it. Match abandoned. Luton win the replay 3-0, and I'm thinking, I gotta get out of here, Thankfully, Italy offered me an escape route.
Yes, the next big feature screening in your movie multiplex of memories is the Italian job. In 1961, the lawman was catapulted to the country of Cappuccino Calcio. At this time, you could have signed for anyone, even Rangers. So the question that must be asked in a questionable tone of asking is, why Italy?
Well, Chiquitita, I'd always fancied Italian football, Unfortunately, that was the kind of football they played in Italy, And there was quite a few British players already there, like Jimmy Greaves, he was a good player, Jerry Hitchens, he was a good player, Big John Charles, very good player, And Joe Baker, who had really nice suits,
Were there many Italian clubs in for you?
Hundreds, yes, hundreds. There was Inter Milan, Internazionale, AC Milan, and Milano were all in for me, but in the end, I joined Torino,
You took to Italy like a duck to Aqua. Torino was like a casa from home. Why do you think you settled so well?
Well, I adapt. I thrive. I'm a mongoose, but I'm also a chameleon, a chameleonamus, if you will. The language was no problem because I only needed to learn one sentence, and it was, ho, bolo, mio. and they'd get the ball to me, and I'd stick it into the back of the net. That was my job, and I did that 10 times in 27 games. However, it wasn't as easy as I make it sound, you know.
And why was that?
Well, you know, you can't talk about Italy without talking about Catenaccio, you know. Catenaccio, what a player he was. He must have come from a big family, because there seemed to be a Catenaccio in every single team, you know. In fact, they even named a defensive system after him, you know, Catenaccio. It's Italian for Catenaccio, which means door bolt, you know, lock the door, you know. And many times the opposition tried to do that to me, you know, drag me out of the dressing room, bundle me in a cupboard and lock the door, you know.
In the end, though, the Italian dream, La Dolce Vita, turned into La Dolce Rai Vita, and you came home.
I did, yes, I did. I was homesick. I missed Aberdeen, Scotland, and all those good old Scottish things like tablet, potted hawk, and flat sausage. So, yes, I moved back to Manchester.
And of course, it was at Manchester United that the legend of the lawman was cemented by that master plasterer, Sir Matt Busby.
At the time, Denis Law was exactly the sort of player we needed at Manchester United. Guile, composure, electrifying pace, and the sort of hairstyle that made Bobby Charlton not feel so bad about his premature baldness.
Sir Matt, you know, what can I say about Sir Matt Busby? Honestly, he was, well, you know, he was like a manager to me. He really was. He and him alone, plus his coaching team, were the reason I settled in at Old Trafford right away, you know. And looking back at my stats at that time, you know, they were right up there with the other contemporary Manchester United immortals, like Michael Stewart and Grant Brebner.
Dennis, in your pomp, your all-conquering Manchester United side of the 60s played with pace, prowess and panache. Busby's boys vacuumed up trophies like a red devil-shaped, turbocharged Henry Hoover. And would you agree you were very much the Old Trafford linchpin kingpin?
Well, let me tell you, chicken nuggets, there was me, there was Bobby Charlton and Georgie Best. You know, we were like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Except there was only three of us. But that's how good we were. We could create an apocalypse with only three horses. We had a horse and a saddle to spare. We won every cup there was in England. And then in 1968, we were European champions too, you know. And winning the big cup with the big ears, you know, we finally got that monkey off our back, you know. And that felt good, because let me tell you, it is very difficult to play the game well at the highest level when you're giving a piggyback to a primate.
At Manchester United, you found the back of the net like a prize hog snuffles truffles. Like a buzzy wasp finds your cold glass of ginger on a scorching hot day. And one youngster growing up back home in Scotland who was impressed by what he saw at Manchester United was fellow Scotland star Frank McAvenny.
Well, you know, the Frankie boy has always been a fan of the lawman, and the man knew of the swinging 60s, you know, because I used to watch Dennis in the park and then think I want to score just like that, you know. And then I used to watch Georgie Best off the park and think I want to score just like that and all, you know. But honestly, you know, the champagne, the late nights, the dating and the supermodels, I mean, Bestie, where did it all go right, you know? But Dennis always got it right on the pitch, so respect is due for that one too. There you go.
Tempest fugit, and when it fugits, times change, and so too do football teams. As a Manchester United icon, a mighty stag of Old Trafford folklore, how do you rate the young Bucks in the current Red Devils first team?
Right, well, you know, the Manchester United of today is very different from the Manchester United of yesterday, or indeed the Manchester United of a week last Wednesday. But they have a very astute manager in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So good they named him thrice. Having three names gives his players something to aspire to, you know, particularly the lad Fred. because, he's only got one. He's only got one name. But give him time, give him time. And when it comes to the players, I do admire the way Bruno Fernandes takes his penalties, Yeah, I do. The run-up, The mongoose salutes the kangaroo.
Just a wee reminder that you're listening to Only an Excuse, Chico's Hall of Fame. Dennis, when you consider that there are 365 days in a normal year, and there have been many days between now and the dawn of time, I wonder if you remember this one in particular, the 23rd of October, 1963.
Oh, yes, yeah, the 23rd of October, 1963, yeah. What a date, what a very important date. So what happened then? Was it the moon landing? No, was it Pearl Harbor?
It was England versus the rest of the world.
All right, because, or as I like to call it, the rest of the world versus England, Because at that time, Scotland was recognised as part of the world, so they picked me. And I was delighted to play, especially as I was playing alongside not just the rest of the world, but also the best in the world, You had Lev Yashin, the big Russian who wore black, and his nickname was the big Russian wearing black. And what a keeper he was. He had hands like balalaikas, Then there was Schnellinger, a German who looked like something straight out of a Commando comic, And there was Puskás, Copa, Di Stefano, Hencho, and Hugh Sabio. Yeah, big Hughie Sabio. What a player he was, yeah. And what a match, I scored that day, not just a fantastic goal, but a hugely significant goal too.
And what was the final score, Dennis?
We lost 2-1.
Okay, let's cut to the cheese. What was it like to play for Scotland?
Well, if I'm being honest, I can honestly say, with all honesty, the ultimate honour for any footballer is to play for your country, Doesn't come any bigger than that, Playing for your country. As I always say, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do to get a game with your country, because what an honour, to pull on that baggy, jaggy, ill-fitting dark blue cotton jumper that weighs 3 stone when it starts raining,
Denis Law, throughout your career, is it fair to say you always enjoyed scoring goals?
Ah, listen, chick, football without goals is like toast without Marmite. It's like trying to play football without a ball or a foot or a pitch, it's pointless. And every single time I scored a goal, I always celebrated in the same way, I raised my arm aloft, thus, I'm doing it now. Yeah, the lawman's one-armed salute, just like so. And so that way, if someone missed the goal in the stadium, they just needed to look down, see the player with his arm in the air, and they could go, oh, it was him, And at the same time, I could look up and see it, and that was a reminder too, that it was me. It was me that scored the goal,
Dennis, you were in many ways a football pioneer, and to give your achievements the proper intellectual context, who else but Scotland's top intellectual contextualizer, Stuart Cosgrove, had this to say.
Off the ball, give us a call. Ha ha! Fantastic. You can't beat it, eh, Tan? Aye, Denis Law. The kick the ball, the loch awe, the kangaroo paw. The Tartan Army will never forget when we became unofficial world champions in 1967 with that famous 3-2 Wembley win. The pint of gin, the wheelie bin, the John McGinn, the dorsal fin. So here's to a legend. Thanks to you, Denis, the pesky menace, the majesty of Venice, the indoor tennis, the Josh McGuinness.
Thanks to Stuart there. Stuart did go on for a fair bit longer, Dennis, but after about 3 hours we ran out of tape.
Can I just say something, Chickamauga? The boy Cosgrove, he looks nothing like you think he would after hearing him on the radio, because when I saw him Cosgrove, playing up front for Aberdeen. He looks so different, you know, from what I imagined. Yeah? And by the way, in case you're wondering, yes, I'd love to have played striker for Aberdeen, you know, my hometown club, the Dots. Yeah, they came in for me in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and most recently in 2017. But alas, I had retired, so I believe they signed Niall McGinn instead.
Dennis, your impact was historic. And who better to assess that than Scotland's foremost historian, Neil Oliver?
Scotland's history is not awash with successful pioneers overseas. The Darien scheme, when Scotland attempted to colonise Central America in the 17th century, was a total disaster. But the Denisian scheme in the 20th century was the complete success, as the lawman brought the Ballon d'Or to Alba. The world would turn their collective head in admiration, although when that collective head was turned, it lacked the sensual swishiness that I do when I shake my locks, because I'm worth it.
The nation is on the tenderest of tenterhooks as we look ahead with frenzied anticipation to the forthcoming European Championship finals. Ahead of that soccer bonanza that is Euro 20/21, what advice would you have for the Scotland players of today?
Well, let me tell you, Chico, a lot of players will want to get into that Scotland squad. And those Euro finals are one colossal carrot, you know. That carrot is the sort of carrot that would make even Bugs Bunny do a double take, you know. I mean, what's up, Doc? You know. And but wait, listen. I'll tell you, boy. What's up, Doc? I'll tell you. The Scotland stars of today, they need to say to themselves, I must get on that plane to the Euros, because it's only when you're on the plane, safely in the squad, going to the finals, that you can relax and plan your tactics. And this plane's only going from Glasgow Airport to Hampden, so there's not a lot of time for the planning. And when those Euros start, Scotland have got to grab our shot at glory, because in modern football today, you only get one chance. You really do. Just one chance, and you need to grab that chance and win. Unless it goes to penalties. And, well, you can win that way too, you know.
Dennis, when you look at your career, you have to say you had a right good kick of the ball. But your most famous kick as a professional footballer was your last kick, and it wasn't even a kick, it was a backheeler that has gone down in history as the most famous backheeler in the history of backheelers.
Well, I think I know what you're getting at, Ciccolini, yes. It was Manchester City versus Manchester United in the last game of season 73-74. And as fate would have it, I'm playing for City after previously being let go by United. And what I remember about that game was it was nothing each, with about 10 minutes to go, and the ball fell at my feet in the box. I had my back to goal, so my first thought was heel, followed by Joe, followed by away we go. But this was no time for the Highland dancing, so I just stuck it in the net. I didn't celebrate because, you know, I thought I'd put them down, but I hadn't, you know. They were bad enough to get relegated without my help. Yeah. See, what you have to remember is, at that time, Manchester City were on the rise, you know. We were the City Slickers, you know, while Manchester United, well, they were coming apart. They weren't so much united as untied. And if you were to ask me why that was, I'd say what made the big difference between City and United at that time was the badges. Yeah, City moved their badge from the traditional left breast to the centre of the chest. And United, see, they left their badge where it was. And that's really what made the difference.
How would that make a difference?
Well, I've got no idea, but trust me, it just did.
After you retired from playing, you never went into football management.
No.
And why was that?
Because I realised early on that management was not for me, when absolutely no one asked me to be their manager.
But had you gone into management, you could have contributed so much more.
Well, that's true. But you know, Chaka Khan, there is more to football than merely taking part. And on that score, I should point out that my contribution to the game went way beyond just scoring goals, way beyond, you know. I invented the diving header, originally known as a flying Aberdonian. The overhead kick, I invented that too, although it was originally named the Dennis is facing the wrong way again kick. My favourite, though, was another of my inventions, the bicycle kick. So called because I twisted my body into the shape it was the first time I fell off my bike. However, the one thing I wish I had invented is what has become known as the panenka, chipping the keeper at a penalty kick. I'd love to have been the first player to do that, so I really wish I had invented the panenka, and I firmly believe I would have done had I thought about it before Panenka did.
Dennis, you're described as one of the greatest living footballers of all time who is still alive. Exactly how old are you?
Well, I was 80 this year, same as one Edson Arantes do Nascimento, sometimes known as Pele, sometimes known as Pele, always known to me as Edson Arantes do Nascimento. And how good was this guy? I'll put it this way, in the pantheon of today's modern football greats, he's up there with Ronaldo, Messi, and Considine. Pele was unique, you know. He was like Eusebio, you know. He was a one-off, but there was two of them, you know.
And talking of Brazil, Sir Alex Ferguson reminded me of this gem from the past.
How good was Denis Law? Well, you know, I think it was summed up best by the journalist Jeremy Nee when he said Denis Law was so good he could have played for Brazil. Of course, the follow-up question has to be, what Brazil was Jerry talking about? Was it the 1970 team who were arguably, you know, the best ever? The 82 team who were sensational? The 66 team who were rotten? Or the 2014 team that lost 7-1 to Germany? Well, I think Sir Alex has been he's been a little bit cheeky there, you know. I'm pretty sure Jerry would have been talking about the 1970 team, where the place of Tostao, you know, the white Pele could have been taken by me, you know, the Pele Wally Pele.
Denis Law, the lawman, you're now officially inducted into the only an excuse Chico's Hall of Fame. Your audience awaits your acceptance speech.
Well, you know, as you say, you know, throughout my career, I have done many great things relating to being a professional footballer. But this is not one of them. No. Don't get me wrong, it's quite good, but it doesn't quite match up to some of the things that I've done in football, you know. I've received great accolades like the statue outside Old Trafford, Bobby Charlton, Georgie Best and me, the three horsemen of the apocalypse, and everyone loves an accolade almost as much as a Lucozade. But I'm proud that many people are named after me, like Dennis Bergkamp and Jude Law. I played in the World Cup. Yes, 1974 in West Germany. We had a really good squad that year. You know, you Danny McGrain, Sandy Jardine, Jimmy Johnson, Rod Stewart. But the greatest moment of all, though, the thing I am most proud of was being the only Scottish football player ever to win the Ballon d'Or, the coveted Ballon d'Or. Those three simple words, Ballon d'Or. I don't know what it means, but it means a lot to me, you know.
Denis Law, the lawman, thank you.